And for more insight into the future of single-use plastics in the U.S., as well as the role straws play in the global plastic crisis, I'm joined by environmental justice advocate Kari Fulton. Kari, great having you on the show. Thanks for joining us. And why is the Trump administration targeting paper straws? What's behind the federal push back to plastic?
Well, thank you for having me, Diego. One thing to mention is that plastics are petrochemicals, and petrochemicals come from oil. So all across this administration, there's been a big push to increase oil production, increase production of these different projects. So it benefits the oil and gas industry to continue building out plastics and these single-use straws. So it's just one piece of a larger continuum of the infiltration of plastics and who benefits and who does not benefit when we think about these forever chemicals and these things that we really don't need.
Yeah, you just mentioned forever chemicals that are part of the paper straw debate. They specifically have surged in popularity in recent years. But what's their appeal compared to, for example, stainless steel or glass straws that can also be used over and over again?
Well, I think, that was a real conundrum for me because I too use compostable straws, and I thought that that was a solution that was really helpful. But honestly, it is more important for us to, if you can reuse it, it's much better than something that's going to be thrown away. I would note, though, that there are a number of companies that have PFAS-free bioplastics and other compostable materials and paperwares. So it is an option to create these alternative solutions without these chemicals. And I think that should be noted.
Kari, how does plastic pollution compare in the U.S. with respect to the rest of the world?
Well, that's a great question. And I think one of the things that I can't speak for the whole entire world, but I will say that our consumption in America is so high and we utilize so much. And then when you're rolling back the legislation that tried to curb back our usage of plastics and single-use straws and things that we don't need because they continue to pollute our rivers and our oceans, that's going to be an issue because you will see more of those products being used. And we've already seen a lot of reductions in plastic waste in our rivers, in our streams, and that's so important for our ecosystems. So I'm actually a little fearful to see what happens a year from now as these restrictions change across the country.
Yeah, I'd like to focus on this because the Trump administration's executive order against plastic straws may be just the tip of the iceberg in the U.S. Is this marking or signaling a shift in national and global public opinion?
That's a great question. And I do think that when you have a narrative that says all of these things are bad, both of them are terrible, so why don't just go with the more terrible thing because it's more economic? That is it's a bit nervous because people will go with the option that's cheaper, especially in a system where we're trying to save money because we're leading into a potential recession. So that hopefully will not change, but if you don't have the public relations and the comms work that's telling people about the importance of reusable products and what that means for our environment, people won't have the opportunity to focus on that and they won't be in our marketplaces as much.
I see, Kari. We're discussing here, plastic straws, but let's discuss the larger single-use plastic crisis and what can be done to avoid, insisting on the use of single-use plastics.
The best thing that people can do is to, if you have an opportunity, bring your own canister if you can. I think during COVID, we started to use a lot more of the single-use ware because it became a hygiene thing. And that's fair, and that's a real concern. So it'll be an interesting thing to look at.
And Kari, right on this, You know, when you bring your own container, when you bring your own, it's always a problem, a nuisance. You got to plan ahead, and sometimes, for example, when you go to the stores, the store pretty much chooses that for you. So I'd like to better understand what can we do as consumers when we can't plan, when we can't, you know, prepare for avoiding the single-use plastic, and to try and set a new trend towards cleaner ways of packaging?
That's a great question. I think, of course, you can always, if you can, skip the straw. Some people need to use a straw for accessibility reasons. You can also, if you notice some of the different companies, you can even look at Starbucks, they've changed the tops on their drinks to make it so that you don't need to have a straw. It's more of a sippy cup situation. So those are key. If you encourage these companies to utilize these products, I definitely writing into companies is important, especially the companies that you like, and also companies that you might be shareholders with. I think shareholder advocacy is really key and important, and we've seen it do some amazing things over the years.
Kari Fulton, thank you for your insights. Great having you.
Thank you.
And that's it for this edition of Going Green, but do check out other special content in our website, cgtn.com.